be brave if you're brave. I'll be brave, but only if you're brave. And it could be just you and me. We'll be family. Just wait and see. So I will fight if you'll fight. Yeah, I will fight, but only if you'll fight. Oh, we can make it through this like sailors in a tempest. Like sailors in a tempest together. And it could be just you and me. We'll be family. Just wait and see.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Lung Cancer Living Room. Happy holidays to all of you. We're so excited to have everyone here in the room tonight, all of those of you who are signing in online, as well as those of you who are coming back to watch post live. Welcome, welcome, and happy holiday season. Tonight, as most of you know, especially some of the veterans, what we typically do is our patient roundtable, and then we cut for a holiday celebration. Tonight, like I said, is going to be a roundtable, so I want everybody to share. A lot of times I ask people to kind of keep it brief because we usually have a speaker here who's talking about the topic of the evening, but tonight's really about all of you in the room, all of you watching online. So please give us a little bit more detail about who you are, why you're here, whether you're a caregiver or a survivor. We want to know your story. So for those of you who may not know, I'm Danielle Hicks, and my job at GoTo is to oversee all things patient-related, so patient education, patient support services. I work with an amazing team that really isn't just patient support services across the board. No matter what we do at GoTo Foundation, we are all here for you. I'm going to ask David to introduce himself, and then we're going to go around the room this way, so you're going to be up first, Rick. So, David.
So, David LeDuc, and I am the Chief Strategy Officer for the GoTo Foundation. If you're wondering about Chief Strategy Officer, basically I work with all these crazy cats to take all the initiatives that we're working on, try to put it into some type of a cohesive strategy, and then figure out who the partners are we want to work with to move it forward. And then more importantly, try to make sure we're on pace week to week, month to month, and year to year in reaching our goals. And so whether the goal is to increase the number of patients who are being diagnosed early stage or trying to make sure people are getting molecular testing, I really get to work with an amazing group of people and try to drive and move that forward and make sure we're on track. I want to echo all of Danielle's welcome. It's so great to see everybody here and join everybody here tonight. Normally I'm online, so hello to all the Facebook folks who are online watching. And Danielle encouraged everyone here to please take a little bit more time telling your story and sharing your story. I'm going to encourage the people who are online to do the same tonight. Maybe take a little bit of extra time to type up why you're online, why you're listening, and share that information and create a dialogue there as well. It would be really great to see that.
And where you're signing in from. That's always kind of fun to be able to tell people.
Okay, I'm Joanne Berridge, and I was diagnosed in September of 2016. But before my story, with me tonight are my sister Marion, David, her significant other, my dear husband Ron, and they're too shy to talk, I guess.
That's okay. Nobody's required.
Marion says she cries when she and I do want to underscore what Rick said about the absolutely lovely tribute. Now I'm going to cry. That Barb and the family put on for Dave. It was amazing. And he was amazing. And the more we listen, the more we know how amazing he was. Okay, back to me. It was September 2016, and I had been complaining to my primary care physician about a cough for a year before that time. And I was sent to allergy, to ear, nose, and throat, diagnosed as postnasal drip, as acid reflux. I was trying to say GERD, but I knew I didn't want to say that. acid reflux. Finally, after it was a year's time, she did an X-ray, and there was a mass in my right middle lobe. Scans revealed that I guess first thing that happens is the biopsy, right? And then the scans, whatever the order was. The biopsy showed that it was malignant. It was then the subsequent tests that it was non-small cell lung cancer with the EGFR mutation. And yes, Tina, the doctor we're very lucky that you have a marker. Okay, it's lung cancer, but I guess if you have to have lung cancer, it is a kind to have. Then the scans showed that it was stage 4. It had metastasized to bone pretty significantly, my shoulder, my spine, and hips and so forth, and one small spot on the left adrenal gland. It takes about 2 weeks for all that to come together, and we all know that's a very anxious time when you just really don't know what's next. But I started on Tarceva. I was on Tarceva for 2 years. The Tarceva, I did bring great shrinkage. It was a dramatic, within 2 months, it was a very dramatic suppression of what had been there. The bone mets were entirely gone. The lung was decreased from 5 centimeters to under 2, and the adrenal gland, which hadn't been large to start with, was smaller as well. And that held for 2 years. I did have one side effect that I guess is a little bit unusual but not unheard of. I developed a lot of scabs on my head, which resulted in my hair coming out. And I was pretty bald. I was bald for almost a year, and now it's back with a vengeance. So that's great. 2 years on the Tarceva, and then I was at about that time, I had gone into a research study at Natera for blood biopsy to detect progression, not original diagnosis, but progression of a known cancer. And so they take your tissue and they do something with it, and then they can compare what's going on in your circulating tumor DNA from blood draws. And about the second or third one of those began to show an uptick in the circulating tumor DNA. So I have 2 oncologists. Dr. Blakely at UCSF ordered a Guardant test to see what was going on with the blood, and it showed that there was T790M. Now, nothing would show in a scan yet, but it showed the T790M in the blood. And so I immediately changed to Tagrisso. Just coincidentally, to remind everyone, that is exactly at the time Tagrisso became approved as first line. So may have been Tagrisso from the get-go had it been 2 years earlier than that. Anyway, I've been on the Tagrisso for a year, and the side effects are much milder than the Tarceva, and I really have no complaints about it whatsoever. It too did a dramatic drop from where the blood circulating tumor DNA was. It went to 0. It stayed at 0 for almost a year. And then in October, and this again is still through the Natera blood tests that I'm learning this stuff quickly, it started to go up a little bit, and it went up a little bit 2 months in a row. So had a CT scan, and it showed something suspicious with the adrenal gland. Had a PET scan last week, and it did show that the adrenal gland has become active. So I am scheduled to see Dr. Schiffner and about radiation of that spot. Everything else is still suppressed. The lung is suppressed, and the bones are sclerotic, which means they have holes in them from where the cancer cells were. But nothing, no cancer there. And that's my story.
Thanks, Joanne.
While we're passing the mic real quick, I want to go back to Joanne's story. There are a whole bunch of things in there that I hate hearing about the misdiagnosis at the beginning, but since then, they've done everything right. But I want to go back to that really quickly. I don't have the data in front of me. I'm kind of a data geek. I normally have my computer in front of me. But I think our registry shows about 67% of patients are diagnosed with something else besides lung cancer upon symptoms. And I'm just curious in this room, for those who were diagnosed, how many of you were diagnosed with something other than lung cancer when you first went in? All right, so pretty significant. And Bonnie's story obviously is the same, that it took her over a year and her own self going out and doing the testing. I mean, that's a real common thing. And so it would have been great if it would have been caught earlier, but certainly since then, being retested at progression and all the things that you've talked about have been huge. And then, of course, the trial with Natera. So thanks for sharing that. That's, I think we're seeing that. It's being tracked. It's being followed. And it's something we're seeing more and more in our registry and indicative of helping us better educate, I think, people about what the symptoms are and those conversations with their physicians.
Yeah, that's great. And speaking of progress on things, I also would like to mention that Dr. Blakely at UCSF has a trial underway that is combining Tagrisso with another drug whose name I forget, that is suppressing the aurora kinase A protein that inhibits Tagrisso. And if this hadn't been just the little blip in the adrenal gland that could be taken care of otherwise, I would be in that trial. But that's still out there for me if anything progresses further.
Thanks for sharing that. I hadn't heard about that.
Well, that's why I brought it up. And it was interesting. I'll bring, you said we could talk a long time.
Yeah, please.
I'll bring.
What else do you have to say?
Well, what just occurred
we didn't know
to me,
about it.
when I first had this blip in the blood test, I couldn't get an appointment with Dr. Blakely right away. So we had, and it was the first time I've ever done this, we had a video appointment. And I had read about the trial in the EGFR resistors newsletter that we get weekly or every other week, however often we get it. And so I had printed it out so I could ask him questions about it. And so as we're having the video appointment, he said, now, depending on where this is going, I have a trial underway that you would be a good candidate for. And I said, I have the trial right here. And he said, well, I guess somebody's informed. And I said, well, you know where it comes from. It comes from the Adario Go-To Foundation.
Adario.
That's amazing, Joanne. And I just want to, for those who, I know that most of you in the room know this because we are constantly kind of beating the dead horse about patient empowerment and education and really understanding your lung cancer because it's so different for everyone. And I think Joanne's story is a testament to somebody who's really paying attention to what's going on, not only with yourself, but what's going on in the lung cancer space to ensure that you're aware of your next steps, even if your doctor may not be.
Yeah.
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 Rick.
Hi, I'm Rick Bryson. I was diagnosed in February of 2015 with stage 4 adenocarcinoma. I went in for another ailment in the end of January, and through some of those tests, ended up getting a chest X-ray that turned out to be a tumor in my upper right lung. And so I was a never smoker. I didn't have any symptoms really, and I'm being treated at Kaiser Santa Clara. But I was able to get, since I was stage 4, they put me on with a palliative care team as well, and they worked, very hard at quality of life issues. Pain management, symptom management kind of stuff. So you had a second opinion right there. You didn't have to just deal with, trust your oncologist. which was really helpful. Kaiser only tested for the handful of genetic mutations at first, and I had none. So I got to go into the old-fashioned chemotherapy. So I had 4 cycles of carboplatin, Alimta, and that was it because they didn't have Keytruda available at that time. And then I was on Alimta only for maintenance. After 8 months, I had progression in my adrenal gland, but the carboplatin had shrunk my lymph nodes and my lung tumor to a point that I was considered a surgical patient, so they were able to remove my adrenal gland. And from that sample, we did a Foundation 1 genetic profile. And that gave me peace of mind just because it just reaffirmed that what my oncologist at Kaiser was the path they had me on. So that was really helpful. And after surgery, I was on Taxotere for a few months. But in February of 2016, I had my first clean scan, and I've had 3.5 years of clean scans since then. So it's been 4.5 years since diagnosis, and doing pretty well. I opted to retire in the middle of it all because it was pretty chaotic with all the scheduling and such. So I fill my days with volunteering now and taking the dog on 3 walks a day and spending time with my wife and my adult kids. We go visit them on vacations. One complication I did have a year after chemo stopped in 2017, I ended up having a blood clot in my thigh that had been growing for a while because it was from my knee up into my groin. Wow. And so I got that taken care of at Kaiser Redwood City, and then I got put on a blood thinner, Pradaxa, that I'll be taking forever. But I want to wish everyone a happy holiday. I've been coming here since summer of 2015, so this has been really informative and helpful information that I get here. And I'm also in a couple other support groups as well. One's at Stanford that Tina introduced us to. But being in support groups has been, helpful, being able to share with others tips and tricks and pulling a nugget out of how we can cope. So, thanks. Have a good holiday.
So, Rick, sorry, Katarina, so you touched on something that I was going to kind of wait till the end, but since you brought it up, I'd kind of just like to ask the group now, because we hear quite often that people aren't comfortable with a support group. I think we talk about stigma with lung cancer and other things, but I think there's sort of a stigma when it comes to even support groups as well. So just to kind of go along with that sort of theme, or what you would tell someone who's newly diagnosed or at a transition sort of period within their diagnosis about this group and others, what would you say? Because I feel like that's one of my struggles, is trying to get people to really understand what you all get out of it.
Well, you really understand when you talk to other patients who are going through similar situations and treatment options, because the nurses know a lot, but the patients know how to deal with it day to day, hour to hour.
Yeah, Larry. And this is an open question to the group, too. Yeah, Francis, we'll get you a mic.
I think the best thing to tell people is watch The Living Room.
Yeah.
And you'll find out why you want to be here.
Yeah. Thanks, Larry. There we go. Francis in the back.
Yeah, I think it's vital that when you, for the first time, walk into a support group, it's an anxious time. Do not be ashamed of your lung cancer. That's critical. Because the moment you're ashamed, you kind of you fumble around, you're shy and all that. But no, it's important. It's people who are in the support groups, they want to support. That's why they're there. So if you're a newbie, just walk in there and don't be ashamed.
Thanks, Francis.
Hi, everybody. Is this on? Can you hear me?
It is. We can hear
okay.
you.
Anyway,
Yeah.
my name's Evie Schiffman, and my story is a two-part story. It started in 2011 when my husband Neil was diagnosed with stage 4 adenocarcinoma, EGFR positive, and he went through the traditional treatment that everybody has talked about today. He was on Tarceva. He loved that drug. It made him, he was very, very athletic. He said that gave him more energy. He just loved that drug. And then that stopped working after about 10 months, and then he went into a clinical trial, and that bought him another 9-10 months, and then went on to different types of chemo. He also had many, many CyberKnife procedures and eventually needed whole brain radiation. He passed in 2015, and he loved coming here. We came here religiously from 2011 on, basically, and it certainly was a support group. But more than anything, I mean, for me, I'll go into part 2 of the story. This is as much for me about how I can learn more and also be giving back to everybody. Yes, I need the support, but I want to be able to give the support too, obviously. So flash forward, I stayed in touch with the foundation, very much involved, volunteering. And then in June of 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer, with lung cancer. And the absolute only reason I was diagnosed, it was accidental, incidental, is that I had read an op-ed in the Mercury News written by 3 doctors who talked about a scan to test the calcium buildup in the arteries going to your heart. And it was a test that would tell you if you were at risk for heart disease, stroke, or I can't remember what the other thing, but it had nothing to do with lung cancer. And so I read this article in February of 2018. In May of 2018, I went to my primary care doctor as part of my Medicare annual, and I said, what do you think about me having this test? It's good enough for the president and the pilots. Can I have it too? And he was great. He said, sure, I don't know if your insurance will pay for it, but sure. And lung cancer was the last thing on my mind. So I have the test, and the good news, I don't have any calcium buildup. My heart's in great shape. I'm not going to have, everything is relative, but I'm okay with there, and I'm okay on the stroke front, but you've got something in your lower left lobe. So, and he mentions crushed glass. Is it crushed or
Ground?
Ground. I knew it was something like that, same thing. But anyway, ground glass, and I knew this isn't going to be good. So immediately I'm on the phone with the foundation. And I have to say that I don't have any family locally, and obviously my husband was gone. And I was pretty informed about what to do, but I'm still like deer in the headlights because how can this be? And Michelle went with me to my first appointment, Dr. Wakerly, because that had been my husband's doctor. And then the next visit, Danielle went with me and helped me through all of that. And so at the end of the day, I was EGFR positive, just like Neil. And I had a surgery, which I know is good news when they tell you can have surgery, because I was just stage 1, removal of the lower left lobe. And so I'm a year and a half out. And I had a scan 2 weeks ago, and then we all know that kind of like that interim, like you got the scan, and then you don't see the doctor until like the week after, and they won't, you don't know what the results are. And I wasn't too nervous, I was like, okay. So I saw Dr. Wakeley, and the scan is no evidence of disease, which is great news, and always a relief to hear that. So my advocacy work is about everything for this foundation because it's so wonderful, and about early detection, because the fact that I was stage 1, and let's face it, most people don't get diagnosed at stage 1 unless it's an accidental thing, because I had no symptoms whatsoever. So anyway, Happy New Year, happy holidays to everybody. And I will just say that Barb, and we've all mentioned Dave, and she has that wonderful badge that says, "We believe Dave made a difference." Not only do we believe it, we know that he did.
Amen.
Thanks, Evie. Thank you so much, everybody. Wow. I mean, it's definitely, it's the holidays, and I cannot thank all of you enough for sharing your stories, your experiences, your recommendations.
They're gifts to each other and the people listening.
They are some of the best gifts, right? I mean, I can guarantee everyone in this room 100% that you have made a difference to somebody, either somebody watching or somebody that's going to come back and watch later. It's a huge, huge thing that you guys are willing to come here with the cameras and the lights. And I know the food's good and we're a family, but but it's deeply personal. And for you guys to be able to come here and just offer this up, I cannot thank you enough. So a huge, 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 huge thank you and round of applause to all of you in the room, and those of you online for sharing. You are, again, the reason that we do this. So thank you for that.
Oh, I'll be brave if you're brave. I'll be brave, but only if you're brave. And it could be just you and me. We'll be family. Just wait and see. So I will fight if you'll fight. Yeah, I will fight, but only if you'll fight. Oh, we can make it through this like sailors in a tempest. Like sailors in a tempest together. And it could be just you and me. We'll be family. Just wait and see.